What is going on? Welcome back to another broadcast. And look, man, very quickly, I want to give you another unpopular opinion broadcast. It's crazy. Towards the end of last year and now the beginning of this year, I was curious, man. I felt impressed to start doing these unpopular opinion broadcasts that would primarily be predicated around current events. And at the time, I had no idea that, you know, things would just come to talk about in this regard, because sometimes um, it's a little interesting, man, when you just begin to kind of go against the grain of thought, right? But I just wanted to touch on this Damar Hamlin tragedy, man, that took place a couple of days ago. Um, it's very, very tragic. For those of you that don't know, I'm referring to Damar Hamlin, who is still a current NFL player. He's a safety for the Buffalo Bills. He was, in fact, hit pretty hard by a receiver. I believe his name was Higgins, T. Higgins. And so that inevitably resulted in him getting up for a few seconds and then collapsing to the ground, going into what was called cardiac arrest and having to be resuscitated twice. Um, and he's only 24 years old. So, 24-year-old young man with heart problems, super uncommon, super, super uncommon. But again, playing the type of sport that he's playing, it's like that's kind of unfortunately one of the risks that you take when you strap up and play football. And so a lot of you that are listening to this broadcast know that, but I wanted to very quickly, just for the history, catch people up to speed that are maybe listening to the live broadcast or rebroadcast and may have heard about Damar Hamlin but don't really know who he is or what's all the fuss about because you don't watch football. So having given you that very imperative background information, I want to go ahead and give my thoughts on this tragedy and also talk about how it exposes the terrible truth that those of us that are familiar with sport or that are familiar with sports, we know too well. And before I do that, I want to encourage you right now to go ahead and share the broadcast, invite your followers, because I'm going to talk about some things again that may go against the grain of thought currently, because it's not necessarily echoed in culture. But it's time to speak truth to power, man. It's time to speak truth to power. And no, I'm not trying to come on here and do a rant against football. I'm not necessarily trying to do a rant against the NFL or anything like that. That's not really what I feel impressed to even talk about or even address. And as I state on my previous unpopular opinion broadcast, given the uh, place I am in life in regards to what it is I do. For those that do come from a quote unquote Christian background, please do not take the unpopular opinion broadcast to be thus saith the Lord. But it's merely me declaring wisdom to a situation that needs to be declared. And oftentimes, it does have uh, lines with Judeo-Christian principles. So that's neither here nor there. Nevertheless, I really want us to take a moment and assess the situation for what it is, man. The young man by the name of Damar Hamlin, got hurt on the field. And what's so crazy about this whole situation to me is, you know, these young men are playing a very high risk sport. A lot of people are entertained day in and day out. There's a lot of money. I'm talking about multiple millions of dollars, billions of dollars even, that are being made on a yearly basis regarding the NFL. Just to give you a picture here, when COVID happened, when you talking about the entire country was shut down, could barely work, could do anything, the Super Bowl was still one of those events that took place during the pandemic, just because they need the money, to be honest with you. But what's crazy to me is with this whole situation is when I look at it, I'm looking at it from the perspective of the players. And that's what I don't feel like is really highlighted extremely in the media, because us as consumers, we can see what they're doing, we can see how they're playing and entertaining us, and be just that, entertained, be enamored. If you're a gambling person, you may win some money on it, or a betting person rather. That may be a more politically correct word for people that do stuff like that. But nevertheless, when you think about what they're doing, it isn't really a guarantee that they won't get hurt. They are more likely to have some serious physical injuries after their career, which really should hone in and amplify on the message of, you know, if you are a young person in the league, man, you need to do two things when you're in that league. For one, you need to do everything you can to keep yourself healthy, to keep yourself, you know, playing at a high level, performing at a high level. But you also need to get that bag. And my thing is when it comes to getting the bag, a lot of times, and it's unfortunate because of the way culture and society is in America, oftentimes we see a lot of black people, a lot of black men that look at these NFL players and aspire to be them. You know, if you go into a low income African American community anywhere in the country and you ask them, what do you want to be? They're more likely to say, hey, I want to be an NFL player. I want to be a professional athlete, because this is what they see as, you know, being successful. And that definitely is a level to success. That definitely is an aspect of success. But I would want to encourage those of you that are listening that maybe have relatives and loved ones that are playing sports to not, to basically encourage them not to look at that as just being the only way to achieve success. If you're gonna play a sport like football, basketball, what have you, and even if you wanted to play at the high level, you need to love it, you know, and that should be the primary reason why you're doing it. When it doesn't become fun anymore, when it's not something that you just really are passionate about, is when you need to let it go. Because, like I said, there are really high major health concerns with this. And again, nothing wrong with the sport, nothing wrong with going after what you want in regards to the sport. But just understand this, it's not the end all be all when it comes to getting money. Like, I am so tired of people in our community selling themselves short because of a lack of, for one, exposure, and then expose, and by exposure I mean exposure to maybe other aspects of wealth creation. You know, you didn't hear a whole bunch of people growing up, even black middle class families weren't necessarily talking about having people as stockbrokers or real estate investors and things of that nature, just growing up, unless they may have had a parent that was already in that, right? So again, there's always been, for as long as I've been alive, just a heavy emphasis on every person of color that does like sports to, in fact, you know, want to make a career out of it. And again, while it is profitable, so it seems, because even when you tally the money that the average NFL athlete makes, while it may be more than some people that are making minimum wage, um, that money quickly dries up, which is why you have, you know, people in the league that be playing for several years and they're broke, you know, and it's crazy because yes, it shows a lack of mismanaging funds, but it's also a system in place there to keep a lot of those guys poor. You know, it's definitely not something that people are all completely eating off of that's playing. Some of these guys are barely making anything compared to the guys that they are on the same rosters with. Now, again, the sport itself, I have no problem with, but you need to have a full understanding of what you're going to get yourself into before you go out and partake in that. Okay, and that's just the reality of it. You may say, "Oh, I know this, but I'm gonna still play." Okay, well, why are you gonna play? What's your why? That is the biggest, one of the biggest questions that you will ever answer as a man is, what is your why? Why are you doing this? Why is this important to you? What is the end goal for this for you? Like what does it profit you to truly do this? Some people say, man, I want to play in the NFL just to get my mama a house or to get my family out the ghetto. Okay, cool. Like that's respectable. That's commendable. But that's not the only way to do it, man. That's not the only way to do it, especially in modern day. You have several ways to get that bag. You know, there's several ways to get it. And so that's something that I think we need to highlight in our community more. And again, this goes across the board. This doesn't just apply to quote unquote people of color, African Americans, aka Black people. Doesn't just apply to us at all. But what it does apply to is just people as a whole, because a lot of times, and again, you have some very smart athletes now. You know, athletes that are going back to school, and that's another thing they don't tell you about that. A lot of guys go and get that paper, but then we're starting to see a trend now of a lot of well-known athletes going back to school. And you got to ask yourself the question, why are they doing that? Because they know once the money that they've made playing professional sports dries up, they still got to be able to provide for the family because of, they have to. It's the lifestyle can't be maintained. The only way it's maintained is while they're playing, you know. And the average lifespan of a lot of professional athletes don't, whether you're playing basketball or football, isn't going to go past 10 years. If it does, then you're a freaking legend in the game. You know, everybody ain't playing out here like Tom Brady. Everybody ain't got the Aaron Rodgers career span, because your body literally can't take it. You got to think when you're playing these sports, there's a progression, right? The average athlete that makes it to the pros has been playing since birth. So when you factor in, um, you know, just the amount of toll your body has taken from high school, going all the way up, or even from Pee Wee, playing from Pee Wee, going all the way up to college, and now the pros. Some of these kids' bodies are very more damaged. Okay, they're a lot more damaged, a lot more. Um, they're a lot more degraded than bodies that don't play those sports for that duration of time, for that period of time. Give you an example of what I'm talking about. Jalen Rose, who was a ESPN commentator on one of the basketball shows that he was on. I believe he may have been on First Take at one point, but um, Jalen Rose talked about how a lot of the players would pretty much refer to some of the new guys that come in that get injured prone early or what have you, um, after looking at their x-rays and things of that nature and noticing uh, the basically the structure of the body, like the duration of it, the current status of it through x-rays, the bones and things of that nature. um, Jalen Rose would say things like, yo, this kid has an AAU body, which pretty much means that, you know, you was basically playing on that circuit day in, day out, and you were wearing your body out. And so now here it is, you got this 20-year-old man who has, the bone strength of, a 30-year-old or someone who's in their late 40s or 50s. Like it's terrible. And again, I'm not saying this to discourage people from playing sports. Not that is definitely not what I'm saying. I personally have been blessed to play basketball for a long amount of time. I played in college and I love it. I still love the game. The game taught me a lot of important life lessons. So that's nothing I will never criticize in and of itself is the game. But when you get to this whole aspect of, playing professionally, when it's a job, these boys are basically treated like cattle, and I'm not going to sit here and say that they just have it so hard, because a good bit of them do have money, but everything that glitters isn't gold. It's not sunshine and rainbows. Damar Hamlin, again, 24 years old, there's no reason why he should have had to go into cardiac arrest during that time. It is so sad, and I'm glad they stopped the game. I'm glad his teammates, and the other team was very prayerful, in a posture of prayer, and things of that nature. And it's funny because they try to keep prayer out of these sports, but when something like that happens, when death is literally at your door, or you see it at someone's door, all you can do is really hit your knees. It brings you that sobering reminder that, hey, man, your life is but a vapor, here today and gone tomorrow. But again, football, basketball, even soccer, when you play these professional sports, when you're playing professionally, or you desire to play professionally, you always have to count the cost of what it's going to affect in the long run. And without question, your body is more likely to be affected in a negative manner compared to people in your age bracket, if you in fact decide to go down that path. People talk about Deion Sanders, man, prime time. The guy of the hour, the coach that everybody want to play for. That man literally had his foot amputated because he had a blood clot in his leg. And it's sad because now you see him walking around limping, and to think, man, prime time was the show. Prime time was the guy that a lot of people watched, and he was just entertaining. Like, you wanted to see him play. If you bought some tickets and Dion wasn't playing, you were going to be very upset if you were in fact a fan of the team or a fan of him when you came. So like, if you were a Falcon fan and you saw that, like, people would be upset if you weren't playing. I remember going to Kobe Bryant's. I was in a city, and it was Kobe's final year, his final year in the league. And I remember purchasing a ticket to go. And what's crazy is the team that he was playing at the time pretty much sucked, meaning like they weren't that good. And a lot of people in the arena that came, the game was packed though, even though they weren't good. But a lot of people in the arena that came to see Kobe Bryant. They came to support Kobe Bryant. And Kobe, was getting chance the whole game. And mind you, this was an away game for them. All right. This wasn't in LA. This wasn't home court. Like, Kobe came and did his thing, and people showed him mad love. But imagine if all them people that came, if Kobe decided he wasn't going to play that day, you don't think they wouldn't have been disappointed? You don't think they wouldn't have been upset? Some of them maybe have even been angry, and hey, it's just the kind of the price you pay. So again, going back to that whole purpose, or that whole point of, the body, your body can't take the beating, or it's going to take a heavier beating for people within your age bracket as a result of playing professionally. This is something that you must be aware of. So again, don't think that, it's just all sunshine and rainbows, and you just have to do that to yourself in order to get the bag. Like, there are plenty of ways to get the bag out here if you apply yourself, apply the skills that you have. Now, going back to that second point, or that second thing I mentioned just a moment ago regarding Kobe Bryant and about the fans being disappointed, this goes back to the second point I want to cover. And that's the fans, us, the people who are watching these guys risk their lives. I understand, to us it's entertainment. But one thing that we have to remember is that to them, dude, this is they are literally putting their bodies on the line. Okay. And if a guy is injured, if a guy is, you know, if he's having some issues with his family and he needs to take some time off to handle that, then we as consumers need to keep in mind that these guys are in fact human, and they don't have to just be there in order for us to be entertained. We can find other ways of being entertained, you know and it's sad because when you take the whole human piece out of it, you just kind of looking at it like a game. So you had people who literally was upset that they canceled the game when Damar Hamlin got hurt, because they're like, man, I got money riding on this. I need to cover the spread, man. Y'all boys kind of like throwing me off, man. We trying to make this paper by y'all, and it's crazy because these are people we talking about. These are people, so we have to respect what it is that they do, and respect the fact that, hey, man, like sometimes it's just not going to be there. It's just not going to be there, and unfortunately, their hearts may be in the right place to play, but your body's only going to be able to go as far as it wants you to go. You could be mentally strong and mentally ready to do something, but hey, man, if your body ain't there, it just ain't there. Now, the final point I want to hit on, well, and it kind of goes on along with the fan piece, because we don't understand, or we act as if we don't understand what these boys got to go through. Now, in regards to this name, image, and likeness stuff, that's basically two issues that's going on in the football world right now. You got the NIL, which is name, image, and likeness, the new rule that allows players to get endorsement deals in college, which also is going to result in them getting some money while they're in school for their talent, and transfer portal. These are the two things that people that are consumers, that people that are fans are always talking about in the modern day. And my response to a lot of that nonsense is, look, these are players, and they have to do what's going to be best for them at the end of the day. I know they may play for you, and I'll just say this, because one of the most vocal people against the name, image, and likeness, as well as the transfer portal, has been Nick Saban, the head coach out there at Alabama and the University of Alabama. Now, having come from Alabama, I personally have several friends, even family members, that are Alabama fans. I'm an Auburn fan, okay? Hate it for it, but it is what it is. You got to pick one if you're in the state. Nevertheless, the thing about it is, the fans want to continue to talk about loyalty. They want to rant on loyalty. They want to rant on not being loyal to the team. These Bama players, these guys don't got the same heart we had. You even have current NFL athletes saying that about the current team, all because they didn't make it to the national championship or the playoffs this year. And they've kind of been on a downward trajectory because what the NIL is doing and the transfer portal is doing, it's equaling the playing field for a lot of players. A lot of programs around the country is equaling that playing field. And so when you were the top dog who was kind of relying on your clout to get all the best recruits and stuff like that, you get upset because now your pool of people you can use, your depth chart, ain't going to be as deep as it once was. Alabama was known for the past several years of being a school to go to, and you pretty much knew, even if you were a five-star player, it was known that a lot of five-star players would go to Alabama and they would not play until around their junior or senior year. And the reason is because they had another 5-star dude who was competing for their spot that was essentially better than them, or they had been there longer. Put it to you that way. Yeah. They've been there longer, so they knew the system. And again, it's very traditional because you got a lot of sports coaches that do that, and they're not really considered player coaches, but um, they'll sit here and play the tenured guys because they know the quote unquote system and all this stuff, which again, that has its merits. So I don't really want to touch on that super hard. But the fact of the matter is this: when you play in the NCAA, you only have 4 years. 4 years to really produce. If you get injured, you'll get an extra year. But ideally, 4 years, and really that extra year is just to make up for the year that you couldn't play because of your injury. But you get 4 years to pretty much make a statement, okay, to prove that you have the ability to play at the next level after that, especially if you're looking at it as business. So the thing about it is this: if I am a 5-star recruit, wow, and oh, well, they should want to compete because I know some people are saying that, well, they should want to compete to try to see if they could take that dude's spot. Really, it's not going to be a question of, hey, man, if you this good, you're going to play. Like, the fact of the matter is that you can be just as good as that dude, but if the coach is loyal, if the coach has a particular player in mind, a tenured player, a player that's been with the program longer, that is who is going to play, as opposed to the freshman or the sophomore who, yeah, he's putting in work, but he's just not there yet. And so having that be the reality, we have to understand, man, that at the end of the day, these players got to do what's best for them. It can't be this whole little situation like, we getting upset and we calling these current people sellouts and they don't have respect for the game or what have you, all off the strength of us not being entertained or us being upset that they're not playing. As we can clearly see with this Damar Hamlin situation, dude, they gotta get that bag while they can. And their bodies, just like our bodies, can only take so much. So they got to do what's best for them and their family at the end of the day. And we have to respect that. You got guys like Jalen Hurts, for example. That guy could play some football. I would say that. He was at Alabama. He was playing, but he was not. He was playing quarterback, but he was not inevitably really just getting off like a quarterback could get off because of the playing style. And so what did he do? He made that change. He transferred to Oklahoma, and as a result, balled out over there and became a potential Heisman candidate. So my thing is this: when you begin to criticize these guys for doing what's best for them, for making the best decisions for their family, I want you to remember this situation, the Damar Hamlin situation. Oh, well, it's just one. Okay, first of all, Damar Hamlin isn't the first person to get injured playing football. All right. Definitely won't be the last. But this is a painful reminder, a very real reminder that these guys are putting their bodies on the line at a very high risk, ultimately more higher than the fans that are watching. So the whole loyalty aspect, criticizing aspect of these players nowadays, because they can get in that transfer portal. Because you got to think about it. If I got the talent to play and I only have 4 years to show my talent, to cultivate my talent, why am I going to sit here and try to continue to battle against all of these tenured guys, not get no playing time, and waste some of my most productive years, because those 4 years you can develop a lot. But if you're not playing, if you're not getting that on the field, in court, in game playing experience, dude, like you're done. Because that's a different stress. You got some people that are really good at practice. They're really good behind the scenes. They're really good, when nobody is watching. But then the moment the crowd is there, the moment the lights are on, it's just not the same level of intensity. Some guys they want to play that pretty boy football, that pretty boy basketball. They know the lights are on, so now they trying to sit here and do their best pose instead of going out there and getting the job done, moving chains and things like that. So again, it is extremely, extremely important for us to understand that in today's modern society, these players have to do what's best for them. When it comes to the name, image, and likeness, people just going to the school to get the money. Good, let them. I say, go ahead. Like, now you shouldn't just necessarily put it this way. You shouldn't completely rely on money. But if these people are offering you a bag, and you know that bag can help your family in real time, I say go ahead and do it. As long as it's not immoral, go ahead and do it. Because while people want to sit here and call you a sellout and this and that for not staying with their favorite sports team, because see, I'm gonna be honest, Alabama, I'm gonna be honest, it's so funny because a lot of their fans, because they have won so much in times past, have developed an arrogant attitude about themselves, right? So it's like, oh, okay, well, of course, we can't win all the time. You're like, it's just weird how they do things over there. And again, I love my family members and the friends that I have that are Alabama fans. That's neither here nor there. Okay, it's nothing to fall out over. But the fact of the matter is that when you get on Twitter, when you get on these apps and begin to rant, and even when the players see, because some of these players are saying this, not understanding that, bruh, and I don't know, maybe some of these guys that's going against it already too far gone because of some of the concussions that they've had or what have you. But the fact of the matter is this: you only got so many years to really profit off of the sport. So I say profit as much as you can ethically, and leave it there. There is nothing that you owe to anyone else that does not play the sport or have taken the risk that you are taking on a day in and day out basis. And I would say that if it was my favorite player, it's the way of the world. And I'm glad again that the NCAA did it, because it shows that the NCAA is in fact a lot more focused on the players now than they have been in times past. It doesn't make any sense. And again, you can't tell me that there isn't some type of system in play when you think about it, because again, in these situations, the primary people that this is affecting, while you have other ethnicities being represented in these sports worlds, like basketball, football, more multiculturalism. Well, I wouldn't say more multiculturalism, but it's a little bit more of a diverse setting in soccer, I guess. But for the most part, the major ones, football and basketball, which is the primary talk of this broadcast, it's black people, man. We are the majority in those sports. And so, again, you're going to sit here, make all this money, these universities, these predominantly white institutions, as well as HBCUs, but you got these huge behind universities for years that have been profiting off of these players and wasn't giving them a single dime of the profit, because they're in school, this is the price they're paying. But hey, You work and make it to the NBA, or the NFL, you'll be okay. But all that goes out the window once you get hurt. There was a man, and again, he's still the talk of the town today in Alabama. A very good man, very athletic man that was he played basketball out there in Alabama. Had the opportunity, was an All American, NCAA All American, had the opportunity to go pro his junior year. But, his folks wanted him to finish school, rightfully so. I understand the commitment there because, it was, you're the first to finish. And again, the way the NFL and NBA works, man, when you got high draft stock, when you're kind of like being looked at as somebody that can play in the pros, that's your moment to strike. That's your chance to strike, because if you come back that next year and you don't have or you get hurt, you come back that next year and you get hurt, your chances of playing in the league are done. So I say to every athlete out there, man, get it how you live. Do not worry about these people speaking negative of you because you go into that portal. Get it how you live, because again, you got to feed your family. They don't. Well, they got to feed their families too, but they're not going to feed yours. And so that's just the bottom line, man. And again, I know it's a little bit unpopular. I see on the live broadcast somebody commented and said that's true, referring to what I'm talking about today. And I appreciate the person that said that. It looks like it was on the YouTube platform. I do appreciate you saying that, wherever you are. But it's crazy because I know a lot of people aren't going to rock with this just based off of two things, really. The selfish aspect of things. You're looking at it from a selfish fan perspective. Well, it's not fair to us because we pay the money to see these guys and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, bro, at the end of the day, you can spend your money how you want to. You don't have to watch football. You don't have to watch these guys. And people will be talking about how they're overpaid. Again, it's just crazy because these guys are providing us rather, with a service. And so as a result, we need to show more of an attitude of gratefulness as well as an attitude of prayer regarding their safety and things of that nature. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say, man, in regards to this Damar Hamlin situation. Again, just wanted to give my opinion. While it may be unpopular to some, I believe it's a terrible truth that we have to, we just have to embrace. So with that being said, man, I want to encourage y'all to connect with me on different platforms. If you haven't already, man, I love to do little topics like this. I'm going to probably do them more as I feel impressed to do them regarding current events. Continue to talk about motivation, inspirational things, as well as spiritual topics as well. So stay tuned because we got some pretty cool stuff coming in the remainder of this year. So I want you to stay locked in, keep on being on your grind, stay connected. Connect with me on Patreon if you haven't already, because you're going to get exclusive content. A lot of my unpopular opinions I typically put over there. Those broadcasts, I'll just, talk to my Patreon supporters and let them know, hey, these are my thoughts on this, et cetera, et cetera. So again, if you enjoy stuff like that, if you feel like people can enjoy things like that, please connect with me. Look forward to talking to you on another broadcast. Till I do, stay encouraged, continue to stay on your grind. Let's crush the rest of this year. God bless.